How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. As always, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. It helps out, means a ton. You guys get plenty of fun stuff, not just Jujutsu Kaisen. We cover plenty of manga on the channel, so stick around, check it out, see if anything else catches your interest. But with that being said, we got to get into Group B of our Curse Technique tournament today. Last time we covered Group A, we got through rounds 1 and 2. Idol Transfiguration was able to get puppet manipulation out of the way so we could move on to the quarterfinals, followed by the cloning technique actually taking down projection sorcery to move its way to the quarterfinals. Now we have Group B, and today we're going to have the ratio technique versus curse spirit manipulation, and then we will follow that up with blood manipulation versus inverse. One thing I do want to mention real quick, however, before we get into the ratio and curse spirit manipulation matchup, is curse spirit manipulation is one of those techniques where it really just kind of depends. What curse spirits do they have at their disposal? So yeah, have they been building up a reservoir of curses for 5 years? Have they had the technique for 1 year? This makes a difference. You'll probably have more curses and probably even stronger curses at your disposal if you've had it for 5 compared to if you've had it for 1. So we're not going to give it a number. We're not going to give it a distinction. We're just going to say they're around the same level. That's the best we can do here when we have techniques that have a severe, and I mean a severe, range in capabilities. Curse spirit manipulation could quite easily be the strongest power of all time, or it could very easily be extremely weak. If you only have like 2 D-grade curses at your disposal because you just unlocked the technique like last week, you're a pushover, you're easy, you're nothing. So yeah, we kind of just gotta run with it and just go with it and see how it goes. So getting into it right now, ratio technique versus curse spirit manipulation. This is one of those instances where I think we just relearn the lesson that giving things a random order will sometimes randomly put something with something else, and it's just going to be an absolute massacre. It's going to be an absolute bloodbath. I am sorry, there's nothing the ratio technique can do here. The ratio technique literally just has to fight its way through a bunch of different curses, exercising every single one of them until it can finally get to the curse spirit user and try to take them out. Now, I will say, like with idol transfiguration and puppet manipulation, if the ratio technique can get up close to the curse spirit manipulation user, they're probably going to win. I think I like ratio in a close hand-to-hand combat fight. That's what ratio technique does. It pretty much just ups your ability when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, and if you can strike at a certain point, you do a ton of extra damage. But, like I said, you have to get through a ton of curses to do that. Now, the ratio technique, well, does help to exercise the curses. It'll make it a lot easier. You could probably one-hit kill a lot of the curses at their disposal. But curse spirit manipulation is a very versatile technique. That is kind of the strong suit of it, while ratio technique is a little bit more straightforward in what you want to do with it. I think that really does give a big advantage to curse spirit manipulation. And if the curse spirit user can send out, I don't know, 4 or 5 curses out to the ratio user at the same time, with the ratio and curse spirit user being very similar levels on everything, it's going to be really tough for the ratio technique to handle this, especially if the curse spirit user will actually get in there and fight alongside their curses. Of course, they have to be a little bit more backup. They have to be a little bit careful to not take a shot from the ratio user because that's a big deal. But honestly, I think they can do that. I think curse spirit manipulation just has the versatility, the range, everything you really need to take down a ratio technique user. I don't think ratio's super weak. It makes you a very strong combatant. But I just don't think that's the kind of matchup you need when you want to take out a curse spirit manipulation user. So, for round 1 of Group B, curse spirit manipulation is going to move on to the quarterfinals. Moving on now to the blood manipulation versus inverse, I think this could actually be a really good fight. I don't want a lot of people to downplay inverse or try to downplay it. We had an inverse user who was fighting Yuji and Megumi at the same time, and it's pretty fair to say if they were one-on-one with the guy, there's a decent chance they would have lost. Remember, the only reason they were really able to win is because they were syncing up their attacks. Inverse, it is a very useful technique, and it's one that can be somewhat difficult to figure out at first. Now, with this being said, I do actually think blood manipulation has the perfect attack or sets of attacks to deal with inverse. Now, obviously, this comes down to can they figure out the technique or not? Because if they couldn't, well, then there's no chance they're going to win. You have to know what inverse does in order to beat it. Otherwise, they can just sit there on elephant setting and you can hit them as hard as you want, as many times as you want. It's just not really going to do much. So yeah, we're going to go under the assumption that we are able to figure these techniques out, or maybe that just the opponents know each other's techniques and what they do before they go into the fight. Doesn't really matter. Either way, like I said, I think Blood Manipulation has a perfect setup or perfect attack or combination of attacks to deal with inverse. What do you need to do to beat an inverse user? Make it to where they get hit by a weak attack and a strong attack either simultaneously or in very, very quick succession, so they can't accurately gauge where they need to be at on their inverse scale. Remember, inverse, if they set it to where small weak attacks do no damage, then a strong attack will absolutely annihilate them. But if they set it to where strong attacks do no damage, a weak attack will absolutely annihilate them. Even though it's a weak attack, it does extra damage. So, with that being said, what is this perfect setup that I think Blood Manipulation has? Well, it's actually really, really, really simple. Liquids don't really hurt that bad, but if they reach a high enough velocity or have enough volume to them, or a combination of both, they can do some damage. They can hurt a little bit. So, if a Blood Manipulation user can just take a big old orb of blood and just liquefy it and whip it at the inverse user as hard as they can, them being allowed to freely manipulate blood, they can probably whip it pretty hard. Just whipping the liquid at them to where it reaches the velocity and has just enough volume to do a little bit of damage, covering the low end of inverse, while right after they fling it, they go straight into Blood Manipulation Convergence, and they shoot that little blood beam thing at them. I think that's just Convergence, right? Or Convergence is where they condense the blood. What's the piercing shot? I don't know, it doesn't matter. Anywhere, where they shoot the, blood bullet at them. Fling blood really hard, and that's not going to travel as fast as the Convergence piercing shot. Shoot the piercing shot right behind it. So the inverse person sees a semi-high speed wall of blood coming at them and switches from what they would probably be on, the high setting, or at least you just have to put in the work to set them up to be at high setting. Once you know they are up there, fling the blood, they see that, go to low setting, behind the blood, shoot off the piercing shot, and then by the time they realize there's a high damaging attack behind the low damaging attack, it's gonna be too late, and they're getting hit with a low end attack and a high end attack basically at the same time. As long as you can time it right, you can basically make it at the same time. So yeah, it takes a little bit of setup to do this, but I don't think that's an overly difficult thing to pull off. That actually seems like pretty simple. Hit them really hard, make sure they have to put it to high, then fling the blood, make them reset it to low, and follow up immediately with a high end right behind it that they can't see because it's obstructed by the wall of blood that you flinged at their face. That's simple. It's easy. So yeah, I actually think Blood Manipulation, like I said, has the perfect setup, has the perfect set of attacks to combine to take out an inverse user. So I actually think this is a really good matchup. I think it would be a super, super fun fight, and I don't think an inverse user would just let themselves be set up super easily. It's not like the Blood Manipulation user, as soon as they think of this idea that I've set forth, is just going to land it and immediately KO them, like, oh, that fight was easy. No, I think this would be a difficult fight. But I do think it would be very possible for a Blood Manipulation user to set up a combo of attacks that would hit at a similar timing, making it difficult for the inverse user to block both of them, because, well, that's just kind of the weakness of the technique. So, with that being said, this will be the end of Group B, and this is how the brackets are going to look out going forward. We have Idol Transfiguration versus the Cloning Technique, and Cursed Spirit Manipulation versus Blood Manipulation for the first chunk of our quarterfinals. Next, we're going to get into Group C, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.